All cities are built on the foundations of their past, but nowhere is this more obvious than in Rome. Here the evidence of that past is not buried beneath the bricks and mortar of later development, but is clearly visible to everyone. It stands proud, staring the modern Roman citizen in the face. You hardly need a guidebook to search out Rome's past history. It can be found on all sides and around every corner. It covers so many centuries that it deserves its reputation as the eternal city. And at the same time, this historical splendour is an essential part of the modern environment. The very word Roman immediately takes us back to the time of Imperial Rome, conjuring up names such as Julius Caesar and Emperor Hadrian. As you stand in the Forum looking at the triumphal arches, it's easy to imagine the magnificent entries into the city by armies fresh from the successful expansions of the Roman Empire as it spread its influence across most of the known world. The carvings on the columns clearly illustrate the power of ancient Rome. As wars were waged, victories celebrated, trophies claimed by the victors, and humiliation heaped on the losers. Tourists from all over the world stroll through the ruins of the Imperial Forum, remembering names and stories that they first heard in the classroom. Here they stand where the Roman Senate met, where Caesar was assassinated, and Mark Antony spoke. Meanwhile, the modern city rushes by, traffic hardly pausing as it sweeps past the Colosseum, where Christians and gladiators blinked in the bright sunlight as they stepped into the arena. In the heat of the afternoon, the sand floor turned blood red, and the crowd screamed to the emperor to decide between life and death. Even today, as you gaze down into the underground cells, it's easy to imagine the noise and the smell, the mix of cruelty and fear, as emperors such as Caligula and Nero decided the fates by the twist of a thumb. Imperial Rome was not just a city of pomp and glory. It was a city of trade and commerce, and the beautifully preserved multi-storied Trajan markets still give a real sense of a working area with roadside shops. Not all Roman remains are empty ruins. The Pantheon was built by Emperor Hadrian as a temple to all the gods. Although it was converted into a church in the Middle Ages, the original design was unaltered. Its pride is the magnificently engineered hemispherical dome which has stood the test of centuries. The hole in the centre of the dome remains the only source of light. Originally the dome was covered by bronze, but in the 17th century the Pope stripped it to decorate St. Peter's Church, but luckily the acoustics remain perfect. Although the Roman Empire struggled against the birth of Christianity, which it saw as nothing more than a terrorist uprising in a far-off corner of the Mediterranean. Eventually Rome itself became the hub of the Catholic Church. Across the river Tiber lies the Vatican, the site where St. Peter was martyred and buried, home of the Pope, and a pilgrimage for millions of people.
This is the largest basilica in the whole wide world that we're going to see. Can you guys see the great big dome? This is designed by Michelangelo. Now when Michelangelo came on, it was in about 1546, which is 40 years after they laid the first stones. Michelangelo bulldozed everything that was built here. Yes, they kept building and rebuilding, knocking it down, rebuilding.
In fact, the Vatican Basilica of St. Peter's owes more to the Pantheon than just stolen Roman bronze. When Michelangelo was commissioned to design the building, he was asked to create a dome similar to the one built by Hadrian. However, he thought the Pantheon was so perfect that he refused to try to improve on it. Instead, he deliberately built St. Peter's dome 5 feet smaller than the Roman original. It's possible to climb up through the walls of the dome, but there's a strange sensation as you reach higher, and the walls lean inwards following the curve of the design. The views looking down inside the dome are almost as impressive as the views from the top looking out. Michelangelo was perhaps better known as a sculptor, and the basilica contains the masterpiece that first brought him fame. He carved the beautiful marble statue called the Pieta when he was only 25. He was so annoyed when people doubted that an unknown newcomer could produce something so perfect that he crept in one night and carved his name along the sash. It's the only piece of work that he ever signed. From then onwards, his quality and reputation were enough not to be questioned. Rome's past is marked as much by the work of its artists as its empire and its church. Bernini was the 17th century master artist who designed the elegant colonnade of the Piazza in front of St. Peter's Basilica. Many of his other works still stand proudly throughout Rome. He particularly enjoyed the extravagance of fountains, which continue to attract passers-by to pause and enjoy the refreshing coolness that the water brings to bustling piazzas. In the Piazza Navona, early morning workmen carry out regular maintenance on Bernini's Fountain of the Four Rivers to ensure that the marble stays clean and the water flows freely. The warmth of the Italian sunshine sometimes disguises the harsh shadows of darker days. Today the Piazza Campo de' Fiori is the home of a colourful fruit market, but in the 15th century it was the scene of public executions. While medieval popes were influential patrons of the arts, they fought strongly against new scientific thought. The sombre statue marks the spot where Giordano Bruno was burnt at the stake for claiming that the Earth was not the centre of the universe, but actually moved around the sun. In 1762, another popular sculptor, Nicola Salvi, was asked to decorate the spring where an ancient Roman aqueduct carried fresh water into the city. His masterpiece is the Trevi Fountain, which almost fills a small square with an extravagant design representing the contrasting moods of the sea. Its very theatricality ensured its worldwide fame as a location for classic films such as La Dolce Vita and Three Coins in a Fountain. Its subsequent romantic reputation draws massive crowds who use it as a convenient meeting place. They sit and chat, and still carry out the superstitious act of throwing coins over their shoulder into the water. It's supposed to ensure that one day they will return, and who can blame them? Rome is certainly worth revisiting in the future, a city where the romance of the past is eternal.